Good evening, it's Wednesday, the 19th of February, and here's what's making news around the world on World News Tonight. Coup attempt, Brazil's ex-president Bolsonaro charged for trying to overturn the 2022 election. Trade policy, Trump announces 25% tariffs on imported cars ahead of the April 2nd unveiling. Corporate shift, KFC to relocate US headquarters from Louisville, Kentucky to Plano, Texas in a major move.
This is World News Tonight with Aquil Qureshi.
Good evening once again. We are starting with news of yet another round of tariffs announced by President Donald Trump. President Donald Trump said yesterday that the US tariffs on imported cars would be around 25%, providing new information on duties he's expected to unveil around April 2nd.
In his first month back in the Oval Office, U.S. President Donald Trump has been focused on taxing imports coming into the United States, citing unfair trade. During a press conference at Mar-a-Lago in Florida on Tuesday, he was asked about the specifics of automobile tariffs that he had hinted at earlier. Trump also said that it's likely that he will announce a 25% tariff on chips and pharmaceuticals coming into the United States. However, with pharmaceuticals, he hinted that while it may be initially 25% or higher, it will go up significantly over the course of a year. Due to the massive tariffs that Trump plans on imposing, the U.S. leader said that major car and chip companies have already approached his administration, hinting that new plants are now likely to be built in the United States. Meanwhile, President Trump has commented on the North Korean troops who have fought alongside the Russian military in the Kursk region for the first time since taking office. According to Trump, many North Koreans have been killed fighting in the war. The comments also come as his administration is holding talks with Russian officials to discuss a plan to end the war in Ukraine.
Donald Trump's administration scored a victory when a judge ruled its favor in a challenge by Democratic attorneys general from a group of states to authorities of the Republican president's chief government cost cutter, Elon Musk.
A Washington, D.C. judge on Tuesday refused to block Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, from firing federal employees or accessing sensitive government records. The ruling in favor of the Trump administration comes after Democratic attorneys general from 14 states filed a lawsuit arguing that Musk lacks legal authority to direct the mass firing of federal employees or access sensitive government computer systems. The billionaire Tesla CEO spearheads DOGE, which has swept through federal agencies, slashing thousands of jobs and dismantling various programs since Trump took office in January. The state attorneys general argued that Musk wields the kind of power that can be exercised only by an officer of the government, who has been nominated by the president and confirmed by the U.S. Senate, under language in the U.S. Constitution called the Appointments Clause. The states also have said DOGE itself has not been authorized by Congress. The judge wrote that the states, quote, legitimately call into question what appears to be the unchecked authority of an unelected individual, and an entity that was not created by Congress and over which it has no oversight. But the judge said the states had not shown why they were entitled to an immediate restraining order. The judge could eventually rule in favor of the states, but said in the ruling that their request for an emergency court order was too broad and speculative.
The US President Donald Trump's administration said that it had agreed to hold more talks with Russia on ending the war in Ukraine after an initial meeting that excluded Kyiv, a departure from Washington's previous approach that relies on US allies to isolate Russian President Vladimir Putin.
The United States and Russia said on Tuesday they had agreed to press ahead with efforts to end the war in Ukraine after holding talks in the Saudi capital at which Kyiv was not represented. Ukraine says it will not accept any deal imposed on it without its consent. The nearly 5-hour meeting in Riyadh was a crucial moment, the first time US and Russian officials have sat down to discuss a halt to the conflict. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said the two countries would appoint representatives before holding regular talks. However, he said their positions were not necessarily closer together. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio said all sides would need to make concessions to end the 3-year-old war. Even before the talks took place, US President Donald Trump's administration was accused by some European politicians of handing free concessions to Moscow last week by ruling out NATO membership for Ukraine. While the meeting in the Saudi capital was underway, Russia hardened its demands. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova told reporters in Moscow NATO must not admit Ukraine as a member. Going further, she said the alliance should abandon its 2008 promise to grant Ukraine membership at a future unspecified date. President Volodymyr Zelensky postponed his own trip to Saudi Arabia planned for Wednesday, saying no talks to end the war could be held behind Ukraine's back. The fast-moving diplomacy, beginning with a Putin-Trump phone call only 6 days earlier, has triggered alarm across Europe that the two leaders could cut a quick deal that rewards Moscow for its invasion.
Heading over to India now. India and Qatar elevated their ties to a strategic partnership and agreed to double bilaterate trade as Prime Minister and the Qatari Emir focused on ways to enhance trade and energy cooperation. The two leaders met to discuss bilateral relations and regional issues, including the Israel-Hamas conflict, shortly after the Qatari Emir was accorded a ceremonial welcome by the President of India.
During Qatar Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani's two-day official visit to New Delhi, both leaders signed an agreement establishing the partnership, reflecting their commitment to deepening cooperation across various sectors. While the current trade volume between the two nations stands at approximately $14 billion, the new partnership aims to increase the figure to $28 billion by 2030. Discussions also included the potential signing of a free trade agreement to facilitate more active economic exchanges. Also, both countries signed a revised double taxation avoidance agreement aimed at fostering a more conducive environment for business and investment.
Argentine President Javier Milei has denied promoting a newly launched cryptocurrency which collapsed shortly after he mentioned it in a social media post. A cryptocurrency Libra quickly rose in value before nosediving, causing severe losses for the majority of the people who had invested in it.
It all started on Friday evening when Javier Milei, the Argentine president, posted this tweet showcasing the Libra cryptocurrency, saying the private initiative would help incentivize growth in Argentina's economy and support local entrepreneurs. The tweet linked to a website which described the Libra token as being founded in honor of Javier Milei's libertarian ideas. But just a few hours later, he deleted that same tweet, saying he'd made a mistake, but the damage had already been done. The token saw its value quadruple and quickly crash back down, leaving more than 40,000 people with losses of more than $4 billion. Over the weekend, as the scandal brewed, the Argentine government launched an internal investigation on whether Milei had engaged in or was complicit in fraud and/or was in breach of his duties. This Monday, he spoke to the media for the first time on this issue, defending himself of these accusations, saying he had indeed met with the people who'd launched Libra, but merely wanted to raise awareness about an effort to support Argentine businesses rather than encouraging people to buy the meme coin.
Let's take a short commercial break. More world news on the other side. Welcome back. Australian billionaire Clive Palmer launched a political party he said he was directly inspired by the US President Donald Trump, months after the nationwide federal election. Mining magnate Palmer said that he would drain the swamp in the country's capital, Canberra, a reference to Trump's plan to drastically cut the size of the government.
The mining magnate is Australia's 18th richest person, with a net worth of $2.1 billion, according to Forbes. He previously led the right-wing Australia Party and served as a lawmaker for 3 years from 2013. Palmer said Wednesday that his new Trumpeter Patriots Party plans to run candidates in all 150 seats in Australia's lower house and the Senate. Palmer also said his party would, quote, make Australia great again, referencing Trump's plans to cut government size. He was also critical of mass immigration and said that the party would only recognize two genders, reflecting positions also favored by Trump. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has not announced the election date, which could be as early as March after the central bank lowered interest rates on Tuesday. His government has seen its popularity drop because of rising living costs.
Former Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro has been charged by the country's chief prosecutor with attempting a coup after he was defeated in the 2022 presidential election. The 69-year-old has handed 5 charges of the alleged bid of preventing his successor, President Lula da Silva, from taking office after a bitter election race.
Brazil's former president, Jair Bolsonaro, was charged on Tuesday for a plot to overturn his election loss in 2022. The country's top prosecutor charged Bolsonaro and his running mate, General Walter Braga Neto, with leading a, quote, criminal organization, and that they aimed to overthrow democracy in Brazil. A total of 34 people were charged in the plot, including several military officials. Analysts consider it unlikely that the far-right leader will be arrested before any trial unless the Supreme Court justice deems him a flight risk. However, the indictment marks the first time that Bolsonaro has been charged with a crime and complicates his already narrow hopes of a political comeback. His case echoes the criminal charges faced by US President Donald Trump that accused him of seeking to overturn his own re-election loss in 2020. That case was repeatedly delayed and ultimately dropped after Trump was returned to power in last November's US election. Bolsonaro's charges come months after Brazil's federal police concluded a 2-year investigation into his role in a movement of election deniers. That movement culminated in riots that swept the capital, Brasilia, in January 2023, a week after President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva took office. Lula, a leftist politician, narrowly defeated Bolsonaro in the late 2022 presidential election. Bolsonaro has repeatedly denied breaking any laws, as he did here last November.
What they are saying is absurd. From my part, there has never been discussion about a coup.
He has called the allegations against him a witch hunt by his political opponents. Lawyers representing Bolsonaro said on Tuesday that he never supported any movement aimed at dismantling Brazil's democratic rule of law or the institutions that uphold it.
The Vatican said yesterday that Pope Francis has an onset double pneumonia, complicating treatment for the 88-year-old pontiff and indicating a further deterioration in his fragile health. Francis has been suffering from a respiratory infection for more than a week and was admitted to Rome's Gemelli Hospital on February 14th.
The Vatican says Pope Francis has the onset of double pneumonia. The diagnosis complicates treatment for the 88-year-old pontiff and indicates a further deterioration in his fragile health. Bilateral pneumonia is a serious infection that can inflame and scar both lungs and makes breathing more difficult. Francis has been suffering from a respiratory infection for more than a week and was admitted to Rome's Gemelli Hospital on February 14th. The Vatican said he underwent a CAT scan Tuesday afternoon and that his condition continues to present a, quote, complex picture. On Tuesday, the Vatican said that Francis was grateful for all the support he has received in recent days and remains in good spirits despite the circumstances. The Pope has been plagued by ill health in recent years, including regular bouts of flu, sciatica nerve pain, and an abdominal hernia that required surgery.
Now for an update on the hostage situation happening in Gaza. Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced a deal with Hamas for the release of 6 more hostages in the upcoming weekend.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says a deal has been made with Hamas to release 6 more hostages this weekend. Under the original agreement, 3 hostages were set to be freed this Saturday and 3 more the following week. The bodies of 4 deceased hostages are also set to be handed over on Thursday. Israel and Hamas are expected to begin indirect negotiations on a second stage of the Gaza ceasefire deal this week. Israel is facing criticism for leaving some of its troops in southern Lebanon, despite today's deadline to withdraw from the country as part of a ceasefire agreement with Hezbollah.
Faced with myriad problems including gridlock traffic and a sinking Earth's surface in its current capital, Iran is considering a drastic solution, moving it to an altogether different location on the Gulf of Oman.
For years, Tehran has grappled with severe urban problems, traffic congestion, water shortages, extreme air pollution, and even land subsidence caused by mismanaged resources and rapid development. The idea of moving Iran's capital has been floated multiple times since the 1979 Islamic Revolution, but previous governments deemed it unrealistic due to high costs and logistical difficulties. Now, President Masoud Pezeshkian, who took office in July, is reopening the debate, arguing that Tehran's problems are too severe to ignore. In January, a government spokesperson confirmed that officials are actively studying the relocation possibilities, with Makran emerging as the frontrunner. Makran is a coastal area along the Gulf of Oman, stretching across Iran's southern Sistan-Balochistan provinces. It remains largely undeveloped, but officials see it as a strategic location with economic potential. President Pezeshkian has also expressed support for the plan. However, no official timeline has been set for the project.
Let's take a short commercial break. More world news on the other side. Welcome back. Rapper A$AP Rocky has been found not guilty of firing a gun at his former friend. A jury in Los Angeles acquitted the musician, whose legal name is Rakeem Myers, on 2 felony assault charges that carried up to 24 years in prison.
Rapper A$AP Rocky leapt into a Los Angeles court gallery to hug supporters Monday, including romantic partner Rihanna, celebrating after a jury found him not guilty of 2 felony counts of assault with a semi-automatic weapon. Later, outside the courthouse, Rocky was jubilant, speaking to reporters.
I really want to thank the jury for making the right decision, and I'm just so thankful. This is crazy right now. This whole experience has been crazy for the past 4 years, but I'm thankful. Nonetheless, I'm thankful, and we're blessed to be here right now, to be a free man talking to y'all. Thank you. All praise to God.
The charges stemmed from a 2021 altercation with another hip-hop artist in Hollywood. 36-year-old Rocky was accused of pointing a handgun at a former friend, Terrell Efron, during a heated argument, and then firing twice in Efron's direction during a second confrontation on the same day. Efron said he suffered a minor injury when his knuckles were grazed by a bullet. Rocky's defense attorney said the gun involved in the incident was a prop gun the artist had used in a music video, and that it fired only blanks. They also said Efron was the aggressor in the confrontation. Efron has performed under the stage name A$AP Rocky as part of a hip-hop collective that once included both men. He has also filed a civil lawsuit against Rocky.
A California startup says it is on the brink of pioneering a breakthrough in the future of technology, the development of a real flying car. Could this be the next big leap in transportation? Take a look.
For all the advances in automotive tech, one issue only seems to be getting worse: gridlocked traffic. But this Silicon Valley startup says the solution comes straight from our imagination: the flying car. And while not quite ready for the road, Duchovny says the flying car is about to take off. Sure enough, we watched it soar through the air over another car and land. But for all the magic of this moment, we were heavily restricted, forced to shoot at least half a football field away, and we never actually saw the driver entering or exiting the vehicle. So far, more than 3,200 early adopters have pre-ordered their $300,000 all-electric flying car, and the company is aiming to begin production by next year. But practicality might be where the rubber meets the sky. Only a few countries allow for the kind of road-to-air reality Duchovny envisions.
According to a statement from KFC's parent company Yum Brands, the fast food restaurant chain known as Kentucky Fried Chicken is moving its corporate headquarters in the U.S. from Louisville to Kentucky to Plano in Texas.
In recent years, many U.S. companies have moved their headquarters to Texas, drawn by the state's lower taxes and business-friendly policies. Now, fast food giant KFC is making a similar move, as Yum Brands announced it will relocate KFC and Pizza Hut's corporate offices to Plano, Texas, while Taco Bell and Habit Burger & Grill will remain in Irvine, California. Yum Brand CEO David Gibbs said the decision is aimed at positioning the company for sustainable growth and improving its ability to serve customers, employees, franchisees, and shareholders. However, the move has sparked disappointment in Kentucky, where KFC has historical roots. KFC's origins date back to the 1930s, when Colonel Sanders started selling his signature fried chicken at a gas station in Corbin, Kentucky. Today, Sanders' face is one of the most recognized symbols in the world, with over 24,000 KFC restaurants across 145 countries and territories. The move also reflects a larger trend, as growing number of US companies have relocated their corporate offices since the pandemic.
Well, that's a wrap from all of us at World News Tonight. Up next, Anuradha Wickramasinghe in standing by, of course, for Nightly Business Report. I'm Akwel Qureshi, and we've got views and footages and visuals for the Berlin International Film Festival. Thank you for watching. Good night.